Okay, we're going to look at adding integers. There are two kinds of two situations in adding integers. I can add integers that have the same sign, so they're either both positive or they're both negative, or I could add numbers that have different signs. I'm adding a positive and a negative. Okay, and those are different situations, and there are different things to think about. So let's look at the same signs. Remember that, if I have 2 plus 3, those are positive numbers, right? We don't put the positive, but we know they're positive numbers. And so 2 plus 3 is, I go to 2 on my number line, so I go to 2, and then I go add 3. 1, 2, 3. And my answer is 5. Okay, and that is, you know that. If I'm adding two negatives, I start at the first number. That first number is negative 2. And I'm adding negatives, so I'm going to the left. 1, 2, 3. And my answer would be negative 5. And that's what that would look like on the number line. Okay, so let's look at it if we just have it in a problem, okay? So remember, these are positives, right? We know these are positives. We don't write it, but we do. So positive 2 plus positive 3 is 5. You've been doing that for a while. I add them, I add the digits, and I keep the sign, right? Positive 2 plus positive 3 is positive 5. Well, it's the same if you're adding negatives. If you have negative 2 and negative 3, you're adding the digits and you're keeping the sign. It's the same sign. Okay, I'm adding 2 positives, the answer is positive. I'm adding 2 negatives, the answer is negatives. I have negative 2, I'm just adding 3 more negatives. So altogether, I'm going to have 5 negatives. Okay, so, and we can do this with big numbers. Same thing holds out. 40, positive 40, plus positive 23 is positive 63. Okay, I add the digits and I keep the sign. Negative 40 plus negative 23 is negative 63. I add the digits and I keep the sign. And that is pretty straightforward. I'm just adding the digits and I'm keeping the sign. That's how it would look like in problems, and that's how it looks like in the number line. Now, different signs, if the numbers have different signs, it's a little bit different. So I'm gonna do several problems, and I want you to notice, how this is working. So first thing I'm gonna do is, the first problem is 4 plus negative 3. Now, negative is in a negative direction, right? So negative is going to be to the left. So I start at 4 right here. I start at 4 right here, and I go negative 3. I'm adding negatives, so I'm going in the negative direction, negative 3. And so 1 is my answer. I'm at 4, and I'm adding negatives, so I'm going into the negative direction. But notice, my answer is still positive, so that's going to equal, okay, that equals 1. All right, let's go to the next one. I'm at 2, okay, I start at 2, and I'm adding negative 1. So I'm going in the negative direction, and my answer is going to be 1. So my answer there is 1. All right, so now I'm going to start with a negative number. So I'm going to start with negative 4. So I start with negative 4, okay, and I'm going to add 3. So I'm going into the positive direction because I'm adding a positive number. So I'm going this way, 1, 2, 3. And my answer is going to be negative 1. Next, in the next one, I'm starting at negative 2. I'm adding 1. I'm adding a positive. So I'm going in a positive direction. And I'm going 1 space in the positive direction, and that's equaling negative 1. Now here's what I want you to notice. Notice that the bigger number, the bigger digit, so 4, I had 4 positives and I was adding 3 negatives and my answer was positive. There was more positives there, okay? In the second one, I had 2 positives. I started at 2 positives and I added 1 negative and my answer was positive 1, because I had more positives. Positives were stronger. I had more of them. In the next one, I had -4 and +3. I had more negatives. I was adding together 4 negatives and 3 positives. I had more negatives, and so my answer was negative. In the next one, I had -2 plus 1. So I had 2 negatives and 1 negative, 1 positive, and my answer was negative. So I had 2 negatives, 1 positive. I had more negatives, and so my answer was negative. No matter what the digit is, the number that is the greatest digit, the biggest digit is has the greatest amount in just the digit, not the sign, just the digit. That sign determines the sign of the answer. So in the first one, I had more positives. My answer was positive. In the second one, I had more positives, and that answer was positive. In my third one, I had more negatives. My answer was negative. In my next one, I had more negatives. My answer was negative. That's going to be very important when you start adding larger numbers, okay? So let's go to the bottom. The next one, number 5. -2 plus 4. So I'm starting at -2, okay, and I'm going +4. +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in this problem, I have passed the 0. I have passed the 0, okay, just to be clear. And notice that my answer is +2. And I had 2 negatives and 4 positives. I had more positives, 2 more positives, and my answer is positive. The last one, I'm starting at -3, and I'm adding 6 positives, so I'm going in the positive direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and my answer is +3. Notice that I had 3 negatives, 6 positives, and so the answer is positive. It's +3. On this side, I just want to do, I want to look at bigger numbers with different signs. So if I had -10 and I'm adding +6, how many more negatives do I have? The negative is a bigger number. It's bigger. I have more negatives. So if I add these together, the answer is going to be -4 because I have 4 more negatives than I do positives. If I had 15 plus -7, I have 8 more positives than I do negatives. Okay, so the positives win. They win by 8 more. There's 8 more, and that's how those answers are. So if the signs are different, the idea is to figure out, what do I have more of? Do I have more positives or more negatives? All right, and in the case of the last two, you can see that it makes a big difference if you're crossing over the 0. Okay, so I'm at -2 and I'm adding 4. I'm going past 0 because 2 takes me to 0, and then I go 2 more into the positives. Okay, so we're going to do some practicing on this. It is incredibly important that this is cemented in your brain. Before we go on to subtraction, you absolutely need to be like dead on with adding. Just got to be, cement it in your brain, master it, understand it, so we are not moving forward until we are sure you're adding integers correctly. Because subtraction throws a little bit of a wrench in, and we need to make sure that we're adding correctly.